I want you to think of this right now. You're going to remember to stay calm, and you will be really, really good at that. I am putting that into you right now. You are going to be so good at being calm. It's going to maybe feel scary and a little overwhelming, but remember that you have been planning for this. You are prepared, and your body knows exactly what it's doing. So the fact that you are having a baby wherever you are is just part of the process. Believe it or not, one of the topics that we actually get a lot of questions about has to do with what if I don't make it to my birthplace? What if I have a crazy precipitous labor, which means precipitous is usually considered 3 hours or less of a labor, even four. But what if I have this crazy fast labor and I don't make it to my birthplace? What do I do? And so I want to calm most of your nerves and let you know that the majority of you that are listening is not going to have this issue whatsoever. So, first of all, take a nice deep breath. Let's chat about that. But next, I want to also encourage you that if you're here and you're listening, then you're going to have what you need in case something like this does happen to you. So, again, when you come from a place of knowledge, then you don't have to be in a place of fear should these things happen. Now, of course, I'm going to say all of that. And if this happens to you, it's going to be a crazy, intense experience, most likely. And even with all the best preparation, you're going to feel a little bit maybe chaotic or out of it or just like, what just happened? So that is all very, very normal. However, I want you to know, as I have said many times before, and as you know, that birth is very normal, very natural. And even with nobody around, it can be totally fine, totally good. And we've seen that. You guys have seen that even. And maybe I'll have to put some even videos below for the show notes on this one. But you guys have seen those videos, the crazy videos, right? Where mom is in the car with dad on the way to the hospital and she gives birth right there in the driver's seat. And my point in telling you that or wanting to share these videos is even though it's crazy and everybody's like, oh my gosh, like they're on the freeway, what's happening? Mom's fine, baby's fine, and everyone recovers well. So, and it's kind of a neat story that you get to tell. So, if that ends up being you, which we're not going to aim for that, but if that ends up being you, then hold on to that story, maybe share it with others. It'll just be another incredible kind of chapter that you get to have in your book of life. So, with that, let's kind of dive into what you can expect and what you can do if this ends up being something that you have to deal with. The thing is, babies come when they want to. That part is very normal and natural too. And so, with all of our best guessing, even when we're going to our providers those last couple of weeks or whatever, and they're saying, you're this much dilated and you're this much effaced, and or even when a well meaning provider says, I bet I'm going to see you this Saturday or whatever the case, like I know you'll go into labor before the weekend. We don't get to choose that. The babies get to choose. And sometimes, most of the time, we get an opportunity to kind of work into labor and there's an ebb and flow to it. And just like our contractions, they become longer, stronger, closer together. Most of the time, we have a lot of time to work into our labor, even with second, third, fourth babies, right? We get a little bit of time. However, occasionally there will be those like labors that come on fast and they come on strong and they just are what they are. And there's no ignoring them. So a lot of times, right, moms are wondering, how can I tell if I'm in labor? That's usually the big question. This one is, oh my gosh, how am I going to know if I'm going to make it in time? So this is also why we say, moms, you guys have your bags packed by 36 weeks earlier if you can, but have a go bag ready to go. That way, if something does like this does happen, you're like, okay, we are on our way, right? Also, if you're a mom that has a history of shorter labors, that's like a heads up, right? If it happened before, you're probably going to be a little bit more prepared and better going this time around. If you have, it can be hereditary in a sense too. If you have like moms and sisters, things like that, that have had those faster labors, then it's always good to be prepared. No, it does not mean that you will, but it makes sense to be prepared for those things. So remember, if this is you, the first thing that we're going to do is not panic. Okay. Whether you're giving birth at a hospital or you are planning to go to a birth center, the first thing that you want to do is not panic. And hopefully, if you start having those contractions that just come on, like, oh my gosh, here it is, whatever, you're either out and about with somebody that can help you, or you are able to call your husband or birth partner quickly, or your mom or somebody nearby that you can be like, hey, I'm at Target or Costco or wherever you shop, the mall. and I am having some pretty serious contractions. I don't feel comfortable getting in the car. Can you come now? So have those people on the back burner, right? Even your doula, whoever you need to be able to contact. But if you are at home and say that your spouse is there, because a lot of times labor happens during the night, then it's really just a matter of you guys working together to be able to get out the door comfortably as quickly as you can. And so that is why having bags packed and all of that before is really great. Maybe have like a quick checklist. You can put it on the back of the door or the fridge or on your birth bag itself for things that you want to grab on your way out when it is really quick like that. Things like a phone charger, water, some quick snacks, things that can just be ready and ready for you in the car. And along with that will be towels, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But kind of that like quick rush and let's get going. Also, if you have babies at home and you need to have somebody come and be with them, then that would be priority one as well. So all of those things I'm sure you're going to be thinking of anyways. So we're just going to dive into the like, here's exactly what you need to do. So, first things first, say that baby is coming and you are at home and there is not time to dive into your vehicle. First things first is you call an ambulance, right? You want to call somebody or your midwife if you are out of hospital birth, but call an ambulance, let them know this is what's happening. Things are happening a little quicker. Baby's coming. We're not going to make it in time. That can be whether you are on the way to your hospital or birthplace, or if you are at home and you're not even going to make it into the car. So the ambulance people, they are trained for this. It's likely they've seen this before and they are there to help you and be supportive. And it shouldn't be anything scary to be able to talk to somebody. It's really, really good to have them on the phone because they can say, okay, take nice deep breaths, focus on this, put me on speakerphone. Hey, dad, can you grab this and this? And they'll just kind of walk you through it. And they're a very calming voice to have in the background. If you have two phones, great. One with the ambulance, dad, make sure to give a call to the to the hospital or the doctor or the midwife as well. Home birth moms generally will call their midwives, and the midwives will just be, I'm on the way, and they walk them through exactly what they need to do. And that'll vary, depending on your specific situation, your medical history, all that kind of stuff, what they direct you to do. But it's not uncommon that a home birth midwife gets a call like that. And especially because a lot of times if you are birthing at home, you will be laboring a lot of that time by yourselves without the midwife there. The midwife comes really towards the end of labor. She can come earlier, but a lot of times it is towards the end of labor. And so it's not uncommon for moms to be like, okay, like things are really picking up. And the midwife is like, okay, I'll be there in 30. And mom has her baby just shortly after, whether that's an hour or 2 hours or even right as she arrives. So those kinds of things are not uncommon. It's the same if you are headed to your birthplace and that birthplace is like a birth center. You'll call the midwife on the way, let them know, and they'll be ready and waiting for you right there. So it is normal and natural, even though it's a little bit crazy and quicker than expected. Now, obviously, if you're home alone, just like I said, if you're at a store or something like that, call a friend, call a neighbor, call your mom, call your spouse or birth partner, let them know what's going on. And just any extra hands I think that you can get at that time is going to be really great. So on to towels. I told you I was going to talk about towels. This is probably one of the most important things that you can have ready to go. So, and that's even traveling to your birthplace, right? It always is like a nice buffer between you and whatever space you're in. Dads love it for their nice cars, right? Because things can happen. Water can break. Who knows? You can birth your baby in the car and there are fluids and things. So if you can have some towels, that's really, really great. It is also great to help have something soft and nice to catch baby and then to wrap them right onto your skin after you give birth. So just birth is messy and you should have towels. Keep that in mind. But you can even pop some into the dryer or dad can pop some into the dryer before baby's born if they're coming so they can be nice and warm. And then you can just kind of wrap the baby up immediately to you skin to skin once they're born. But we'll get into that a little bit more in just a sec. If you have, you can actually have Chucks pads. That's something that I encourage moms to have in their birth bags for going to the hospital, right? You could just throw that underneath. So towel, Chucks pad in case there's a baby. But that catches all the fluids and stuff. And it's just really nice to have, easy to throw away, something that you can change out. So definitely something to keep with you. As I said before, you're going to remember I want you to think of this right now. You're going to remember to stay calm and you will be really, really good at that. I am putting that into you right now. You are going to be so good at being calm. It's going to maybe feel scary and a little overwhelming, But remember that you have been planning for this. You are prepared and your body knows exactly what it's doing. So the fact that you are having a baby wherever you are is just part of the process. Remember to repeat those birth affirmations if you have any that are in your mind. I am safe. My baby's safe. My body is meant to do this work, whatever that is. And trust your body and your baby because when it's time, and you are there to enjoy it. It's also really good to remember all the things that you have learned. If you've been listening along to the podcast, if you're part of the My Essential Birth course, all of those things will come back to you as they are needed. So that's why we say, practice now, do those affirmations now, listen and get all the knowledge now. Labor rehearsals, relaxation practice, all of that stuff should be happening right now. And when it is needed, that is why. It's that muscle memory. It's going to come right back to you. So nice and calm, deep breaths, focused on the positive parts of the situation, even though it's going to be a little bit crazy. You're going to want to remember to get into whatever position feels good for you. And that can be hands and knees. If you're in the car, maybe it's like over the back of a seat or something, buckled in. Moms get into all kinds of different positions and you just do what you can do, especially when you are on the way to the birth center or hospital. So at home, same thing, right? And oftentimes it ends up being in a squatted position or hands and knees or hung over something, over a birth ball or over a couch or something like that. But whatever position you need to be in, you do that. And then make sure that those sounds are low and guttural because the last thing you want to do is if you are feeling nervous is kind of go into like panic attack and be breathing in your chest. Those like short, shallow, quick breaths. So remember, I'm just going to like focus on the positive, bring all that energy down into my belly and my perineal area, breathe deep, and then make whatever guttural noises you need to make, right? Any noises that we're making, instead of them being really high pitched and like squeaky and like, oh, kind of those panic screams, you want it to be more like a, oh, and you are so welcome for the sounds that you are hearing in your ear right now as you listen to this podcast. But that is very real. And it is actually something that I used to do in my birth classes when I would have them in person. Like I would imitate those things. Like those are the sounds you need to hear. And I'd have the moms do it because if you think it's weird, before labor, you want to be comfortable when it's labor time. So it's why we have you guys do relaxation practice and all this stuff. Like way before you're more vulnerable, half naked, and there are people you don't know in your birth space. So that's why you guys should be practicing that kind of stuff right now. So you can do those low guttural noises and breathe into that belly, kind of focus on that. Something else that you guys can have on you that is always, good to have around is a bulb syringe. Not that you're necessarily going to need it, but if you are noticing that once a baby is born, that they've got kind of some of that like a gurgly sound in their throat, you can use a bulb syringe and kind of like suction some of that out. Most times it's not needed. However, if you're hearing that, and especially if the midwife's like, do this, you want to have something available so that you can take care of your little baby. EMS, if they were to come, for example, if ambulance arrives and all that kind of stuff, they would have some of that as well. So good to have, but also know that the people involved in taking care of you and your baby are going to have that stuff as well. Now, as I said, once baby is born, so let's say you're in the car or at home, baby is born and you're like, oh my gosh, what just happened? You're just going to pick that baby up and put him right to your chest. Immediately skin to skin, wrap them with a towel or blanket. And you just want to make sure that their body temperature stays with yours, right? The very best way to regulate a baby's body temperature is just to have them skin to skin with mom. And we say that, even in totally non-precipitous regular births that you have anywhere. So we're doing body temperature, skin to skin. Don't worry about clamping and cutting any cords. Don't worry about delivering your placenta in the moment. All you're going to do is scoop that baby up, have them skin to skin, and focus on the bonding. Okay. Nice deep breaths and just kind of recover from everything that just happened. Basically, what we say is catch everything, pull nothing. That's kind of the overall what you're focusing on doing. Now, in certain situations, and maybe it will be recommended by people that are involved with you, they might say at some point you're going to want to tie off that cord with a shoestring or something like that and clip. And it would be pretty rare that you would be involved in all the doing of that. Really, you can just let that cord pulsate and now you're going to get, right, your delayed cord clamping by quite a bit. likely. So you can just leave it. You can totally leave it. So if you've ever heard of a lotus birth, for example, that is where they leave the placenta completely attached the whole time until it falls off naturally on its own. So, and anyways, my point is there's no rush to get the placenta out and cut the cord or anything like that. Your body really will do what it's meant to do. Now, if after having the baby and you're skin to skin and it's still taking a while for somebody to get to you or for you to get to where you're going. And if you're still without some kind of professional support, you do want to keep track of and maybe monitor some bleeding. So if there's a lot of blood, or you can tell like I'm feeling faint or I don't feel right, or dads, if you're paying attention and you're like, she's, kind of losing some color and she's, postpartum hemorrhage can be a pretty serious thing. We're going to assume that that is not going to be an issue. However, if you are noticing some of those things that like, something's going on with mom here. One of the things that you can do is to, once that placenta is delivered, take a little piece of placenta, rinse it, get it, rinsed off in some water and stick it in mom's cheek. So this is something that midwives do at home. They also have herbs and tinctures and stuff that they use, but that's a really common one because your placenta has a lot of oxytocin in it, and oxytocin is what creates contractions, and those contractions are what help clamp down on the uterus and stop a lot of that bleeding. So if you can get that placenta in your cheek, that can be a way to naturally relieve some of that. The other thing that you can do is to breastfeed. So you've got that baby nuzzled next to you. If they're ready to jump on the breast, that's great. Same thing. It's going to create oxytocin, contractions, clamp down, and help with all of that. It can be helpful too, if like right after you have your baby, we know that nursing helps expel or deliver the placenta. So if you're trying to get the placenta out, or it's been a little while, or just to encourage baby breastfeeding placenta to come out, then you can do that immediate skin to skin with the breastfeeding, and that can help with that as well. So, and then once the placenta is born, that's usually when we see a lot of that bleeding and stuff, or when we're paying attention to postpartum bleeding. And that's when you can grab a little piece of that placenta off, rinse it off, and put it in the cheek. If the ambulance or other birth professional arrives sometime during this time, or you get to your hospital birthplace or whatever, and you are having some of that more serious bleeding, then they'll probably administer Pitocin. So this is just something that you would be able to do in the meantime if you are noticing some of that bleeding, but you don't have access to medications, obviously. Remember that even if you give birth in a place that was not your necessarily like intended place of birth, that it can still be really beautiful and you can do all the things that you wanted to do previously, which includes delayed cord clamping, immediate skin to skin. You can have that golden hour that we all talk about. There's no reason that these things can't exist. And so the nursing, everything, you can still do all of that. And it can be a really beautiful experience. It's actually a great reminder to a lot of moms that birth is normal and natural and not an emergency most of the time. And in fact, you might even be excited about how hands off it really can be. However, if you did have a very quick, intense labor, there can be a little bit of that shock afterwards too, where it's really helpful to have dad nearby. It's helpful to talk with other people about the situation and what happened. Everything happens very quick. And so your body can kind of be shocked from that for sure. I know that I've had some moms that have given birth before I've even gotten there as the doula, which doulas usually show up before home birth midwives or before we head to the hospital. And it can just be kind of like, whoa, what just had you feel like it was a dream, like it didn't happen. It takes you a minute to like reconnect to the fact that you were here on earth and touching your baby and like this is real. So make sure that you are talking to people about your experience, that you share the story over and over again. It can really help to journal. We say prayer, meditation. Taking baths can be really helpful, like just whatever can help you. Like you want to use those senses again, like feel that you are in your body, focus on the things that are going through your mind, get the really fast moving thoughts out of there that are, there's a lot of crazy that happens or can happen, especially in the mind when you have a quick labor like this. So get all of those thoughts onto paper, talk to somebody about them, and you kind of move through. You treat it as if, which it does not necessarily have to be traumatic, but you treat it as if it were a traumatic birth experience. And sometimes maybe it is, but so that you can kind of like work through the same steps that somebody that did have some of that would work through. because you may or may not notice that some of that shock, even though you're like, oh my gosh, my baby's here and this is so exciting. And like, but it can all kind of like hit a little bit after. And that's totally normal. So you treat it the same, right? So the journaling and the talking and the being gentle with yourself, a lot of bonding time with your baby, do all the skin to skin that you can handle, talk with your spouse or your birth partner because it can be just as traumatic, if not more traumatic for them, not knowing, not being ready to experience something like that, being concerned about the mom or the baby during that time. It's a lot of stress on the dads too to watch mom go through that. So I think that's really important to lean on each other there, but make sure that dad's getting what he needs too in the way of talking to people and other things like that. So let's recap really quick. I know that I went through a lot of different scenarios and kind of the what ifs of what can happen. So first of all, you want to make sure that your bags are packed early as you can. And you should also have some kind of quick go list. So say that you've got your go bag, but it's not going to include obviously your charger, maybe a water bottle, some snacks, towels, that kind of stuff. So have your like quick list ready to go right next to it on the back of the door, the fridge, somewhere where you're going to see it and you can say, I'm going to run through these like 4 or 5 things and like, yes, I have everything I need. Let's go. It's really smart to always have your gas tank at least half full or more. So kind of just that preparation that way. Getting mom into a vehicle when she is going through, especially like quick labor like that, you want her to be as comfortable as possible. So you've got the towels, maybe bring a pillow or whatever, but think of the temperature of the car too. So if you're in the winter now or whatever and it's cold, heat up that car while you're pulling everything together while mom's doing all that kind of stuff. If it's hot, cool down the car, but have as much as you can that situation, as best for mom as you can. And then for moms, once you realize like this is intense, this is crazy, all of that, and you've called all the people and you are ready, either you're waiting for an ambulance or you've called your husband, spouse, birth partner, mom, friend, whoever, and you've got those extra hands, your job is to focus on you, to be calm, to be collected, to focus on the breaths, to make sure that your breathing is happening not in your chest, but down low in your belly. We always say fill it up like a balloon. You're just going to focus on one contraction at a time. That is your job during all of this. And then once that baby is born, which you're going to listen to your body, whatever position you feel like is going to be best. And even as you're pushing, it's going to be low guttural sounds and the reminder in your mind that everything is okay, that this is normal and you are safe and your baby is safe. Once that baby's born, catch everything, pull nothing. Baby immediately skin to skin, nice warm towel on top. And hopefully you've got whoever you need to be talking to on the phone or whatever. And you're just going to breathe and take it all in. And then once that placenta is born, if you have any extra bleeding, you're going to grab a little chunk of that placenta. And it probably won't be you that's doing this, right? Somebody around you will grab a little chunk of that placenta, rinse it off, put it in the cheek. And you're just going to make sure that as much as you can, we're going to focus on controlling any excess bleeding and hanging out with baby. And then you just wait for help to arrive or for you to get to your birthplace and kind of like follow the next step procedures. But you still get that immediate skin to skin. You can still have your delayed cord clamping. You get all of the benefits of everything going right. It just happened a little bit quicker. And then afterwards, you're going to focus on all of those things as if it were a traumatic birth, even if it is not. And we hope that it is not. Things like journaling, prayer, meditation, talking about your birth story, and getting postpartum help. So all of those things, that's kind of your quick recap of what you can do. Remember that birth is unpredictable. But it doesn't have to be scary. And so if you are not already in the My Essential Birth course, I want to encourage you right now to jump in and get started. We have all the updates that are coming out before the end of this year. So if you dive in right now, you're going to get the current course and you're going to get all of the brand new stuff along with it. And that's before the price goes up as well, because there's a lot of new awesome stuff. And we've kept it the same for the last 7 years. So, which I can't believe, anyways, that it has been out that long, but it has. So imagine how prepared you can be if you are ready for all of those things. Class 5, for example, that's our like what if class. Like, what if, and we fill in the blanks for like all the things that can happen during birth. And it's like, really, what if you knew about all those things and you were prepared so you weren't afraid? Then the what ifs are like, well, here's the different options that we have. Here's the different things that can happen. And these are like already in the back of my mind. I already know if this happens, this is kind of the direction I want to go. That is such a benefit to being prepared. So if that's something that interests you, please dive in. We walk you through step by step, stage by stage, kind of hold your hand all along the way. And then you guys get to share all the birth stories and stuff with each other, which is super fun on the back end. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions or comments, make sure that you email us at hello@myessentialbirth.com. And I will see you guys next week.